With supporting abilities and a long-forgotten exotic, this might be the most fun I've had with the bow. And that bow is Ticuu's Divination. It's a solar bow back from the Beyond Light days, the Beyond Light expansion, so going on about 5 years now. And it's not really seen a bit of a spot in the sandbox for a while. It was sort of gutted in terms of how good it was, but I think it still deserves a spot in the limelight, especially with the different aspects, fragments, the updated artifacts we can use. Certainly got a place. You can see we're rolling through some Grandmaster activities in the background here, just sort of skating through and not really having too much to worry about. Now, we'll be going through the full build today. There's going to be 6 fragments on offer because we'll be using Consecration along with the Shield Burst aspects. So if you want to see a little bit more, guys, make sure you stick around. Alright, well, in terms of exotics today, let's have a look what we've got. So we've obviously got Ticuu's Divination, and we're going to pair that with Khepri's Horn. So the Titan Helm exotic, it's a solar based exotic, and it uses the armor perk Solar Rampart. Solar Final Blows recharge your barricade, and while you have Solar super equipped, casting your barricade unleashes waves of solar energy, damage and scorch targets. Combatants damaged and guardians defeated by these waves are enveloped in a sunspot. Now, the key word to take away from Khepri's is Scorch. So you apply Scorch when you hit enemies with your barricade sunspots, really. And when you hit enemies with your Scorch, that's essentially acting like a fuse for Ticuu's. So Ticuu's, when you hit fire, you're essentially hitting and marking targets for small amounts of damage, but you're priming them for an ignition. So when you aim down sights and you hit them with that arrow, that'll cause the explosion. The good thing about applying Scorch is that acts as the hit fire as well. So if you apply Scorch to a number of enemies, well, you've already primed it. You just aim down sights with Ticuu's, and that's going to cause the ignition. So it speeds up the process, gets a lot more damage happening, and you'll get used to it over time where you can spot which enemy is scorched, which enemy's not. You apply a little bit more, get a big explosion happening. Now, that's just the interaction between the two exotics, and it's been very helpful, very, very handy. It's got me out of a few tough situations in terms of taking out groups of enemies very quickly. The other thing is that a solar barricade, a solar projecting barricade, is just very strong on its own. So really good exotics to run alongside the other options here, but we'll go through the subclass first. Okay, so as you can see, we're using the Hammer Titan Super alongside Rally Barricade. Very important for Rally, not using Towering Barricade. Alongside Strafe Lift, we're using Hammer Strike. Well, we probably won't be using too much of that, I must say, because we're going to substitute that for Consecration alongside our Healing Grenades. So if we want Restoration on tap, that's what we're going to use. Now, the first aspect we've got there is going to be Shield Burst. So as you can see, staying behind our barricade there is going to give us some solar perks, not only to us, but to our allies as well. It's going to give us and our allies Scorching Rounds. Now, Scorching Rounds are really good for our kinetic weapons too. Not only for us, but for our allies. That's going to give our kinetic weapons some solar damage on top. The main thing we're looking for, though, is when we remotely detonate our barricade, it's going to scorch combatants that are caught in front of it. So it essentially works like a claymore, so it explodes outwards into enemies, which showers them in solid damage. And from that point, you can just use Ticuu's to mop them up, aim down sights, hit those scorched targets, and watch them explode. Now, the second aspect we're using, as mentioned, was Consecration. Now, I haven't really focused on Consecration, but I had a lot of fun with it in this particular setup. Now, for those who have been living under a rock and don't know what Consecration is, it is a melee substitute. So while sliding, activate your charge melee ability. So when you've got it primed in your bottom left, you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to launch a wave of solar energy forward and damaging and scorching targets. So again, getting that keyword, Scorch, as you leap into the air. And while airborne, activate your charge melee again to slam it down onto the ground. So you get a second bigger wave. That's if you've already ignited scorched targets, they'll explode with an ignition. Now, it's very similar to Khepri's. Any stragglers that are scorched by that ability, you can mop them up with Ticuu's, just hit them with an aim down sight arrow, and it will ignite them as well. It basically consumes the stack of Scorch, and then you need to reapply it with the hip fire. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we've got 6 fragments to add to this build because each of our aspects gives us 3 slots. So we're going to go through an Ember of Searing, Eruption, Singeing, Char, Ashes, Torches. Searing and Torches focusing around our melee, basically getting the most out of our powered melee, so our Consecration. Eruption and Char gives us a little bit of benefit with our ignitions. And Singeing and Ashes is focusing on our Scorch regeneration, just so we can get our class ability up a lot quicker than we normally would. Now, in terms of other weapons that were paired with this build, you can chop and choose whatever you like. I don't have anything set in stone, but I'm using Festival Flight in the kinetic slot, and that'll be taking care of our Overload champions, but it also triggers Slice. Because we're using our class ability so often, I thought having Slice up would be pretty beneficial. So that's going to sever our targets and give us a little bit of extra damage over time as well. The other weapon that we're going to use in our heavy slot, now it's going to be taking our anti-barrier barriers. So I've just thought, look, we'll put in the refurbished A499. It's a heavy hitting sniper, it does huge damage to barriers. So I thought that was a pretty good contender. Like I said, none of this is set in stone. You can choose whatever you like. The main thing is obviously having Ticus and then revolving around that. So there's probably some weapons out there that benefit from Scorch on your heavy, and that might help you with TQ ignitions as well. So pretty keen to hear your options that you're going to pair this with. Let me know in the comments what you sort of have in mind, maybe some ideas, even just looking at this build, and I'll be pretty interested to see what you guys are building. Now, in terms of armor mods, guys, we'll go from top to bottom, and let's look at the helm. So we're running triple harmonic siphon. Now, it really depends on the activity you're doing, because in our seasonal Grandmaster stuff, where the minus 50 absolute hell, you might not be able to take advantage of harmonic siphon because you won't be actually killing a lot of enemies in a row. So you might want to run triple dynamo because you'll be using your barricade around a lot of enemies, and that will give you a lot more super generation. So that might be a good trade-off. Anything in like ultimate or below, so like just normal Grandmaster, like 450 power, I would definitely recommend harmonic siphon because you'll be able to take enemies out a lot quicker. But they're sort of the options that I was tying up with. Now, next one is going to be our arms. So we're using Shield Break Charge. So you're going to see a big portion of the armor mods are revolving around armor charge and how to generate it. That's going to be part of our artifact. We'll jump into that after the mods. But as you can see, so I've got 2 of these Shield Break Charge and 1 Focusing Strike. Now, Focusing Strike grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee attack. So our Khepri Sworn working well with Consecration, helping each other out to get those abilities turning over nice and quickly. Chest armor is going to have 2 of charged up, increases the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1, so we're going to have a total of 5, and then we're going to have a melee resistance. We're going to have a lot of enemies slipping through our barricade and sort of flanking us. We're going to get hit by melee, so why not just mitigate a little bit more of that damage? Now the legs, we're going to take up the whole screen here because we've got a little bit more to go through. So 3 different mods. So we've got stacks on stacks. Picking up an orb power grants you 1 additional stack of armor charge. So as we pick up an orb power, we get 2 stacks of armor charge. Elemental charge, every time we pick up a fire sprite, that's going to give us the chance to get an armor charge as well. And then solar weapon surge, while we have armor charge, we're going to get a benefit to our solar damage. So lots of things happening on the legs there, but all fairly self-explanatory. Now for the mark, we're running 2 time dilation just so we can hold on to that armor charge as long as we need to, and then 1 empowered finish. Essentially, if we don't have any armor charge and we finish off an opponent, that's going to give us 2 stacks of armor charge to jumpstart our armor charge amount. Now, as you saw from the opening clips, we're actually running the 7th Seraph armor set bonus. So final blows with area of effect damage, because we're getting lots of explosions and solar abilities. I thought this was probably the best option. I did try a couple of other different variants. The Nessus armor set for armor charge, where you heal every time you use it, gain it, but it wasn't very reliable. I think it might be bugged because I couldn't get it to work properly. It was all over the place, so I dropped that idea and just ran with 7th Seraph. As you can see, it's just all round, it's perfect. It really works nicely with ignitions. There might be some other options around, but I mean, you could use Bushido. That has a bit of a healing factor to it, but again, I think the damage output from 7th Seraph is just too good to pass up. In terms of our stat distributions, I've prioritized melee, class, and weapons. Melee, so we can get Consecration back reliably. Class, we're already getting class ability back from Scorches via Fragments, but high class ability will add some added bonus damage to our sunspots as well. And then weapons, well, it's always nice to have a nice healthy amount of damage coming from our weapon itself. In terms of secondary stats, I'd be looking at super. If you don't worry too much about grenade, because every time you pick up a fire sprite, you'll be able to get grenade energy back. And health, well, bit of a scam. What isn't a scam is the artifacts. So the artifact, the main one we're looking at is Argent Quiver. So every time you have armor charge, we'll have overpowered arrows, 3 of, being loaded into our Ticus. I'm going to take advantage of that as much as we can. That's why I've prioritized armor charge in the build, and that's where a lot of our damage is going to be coming from. So not only from the ignitions, but from the boosted arrows from Argent Quiver. So keep an eye out for that. And that's going to be the build for today, guys. So thanks very much for sticking around till the end. If you have, really appreciate your time. That's going to be our first bow build for the channel. So a bow isn't really a weapon I use a lot of. I think Ticu's probably needs a little bit of work in some areas, but it was very surprising about how good it actually was. It's quite a safe weapon, especially behind the barricade. You don't have to stress too much, and you've got the healing grenade there too to help you out if you need it. So I think a pretty good weapon all around. Certainly not meta, but definitely a usable weapon, I think. And like I said, if you're going to be using it in normal 450 Grandmaster or even 500 Ultimate light power, you'll have a great time with it. It'll actually do quite well. So, well, thanks for those that have stuck around. Like I said, if you do have any suggestions about changes or feedback, let me know in the comments. Make sure you like the video if you liked it. And if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure you subscribe. I'd really love to get to 2,000 followers. You guys have been great. I'm getting a lot of great feedback from people during videos, even through the posts that I've been putting throughout the week. So again, thanks very much for your time. There will be a Discord server coming out soon. Stay tuned for that. Otherwise, see you guys in the next one.